Hey guys, it's Ricky Cicchini, the VP of Product here at CloudRadial, and in this quick video, I'm going to show you how AI documentation works inside of ServiceAI. And let me set the stage. Documentation next to ticket bodies are single-handedly the best way to improve ServiceAI output quality, really any AI output quality. The reason being it has all of your processes, your intellectual property, everything on how you do something is typically stored in those KB documents. But the problem is, a lot of MSPs have them fragmented all over the place, and maybe they're updated, maybe they're not. And generally, even if both of those things are true, technicians have a hard time finding that information, sourcing the relevant parts, and then using it. So a lot of times you get duplicate articles, or people just Googling stuff and ignoring it, or never capturing the logic and knowledge and moving on. ServiceAI is built to fix kind of that entire flow of problems. It has a built-in tool to generate that documentation, which we're going to see here in just a second, and it's going to take seconds to do and improve rather than minutes or hours, formatted nicely and everything. And we're going to look at a couple different use cases of how people actually use it to improve the documentation. Once it's in ServiceAI, that's going to automatically fuel AI responses with better responses and faster search. So it's really beneficial, and in general, it's kind of a add once and forget it because it's stored, and ServiceAI will never forget it and will always be able to pull it up relevantly. So let's take a look at how it works. First things first is how we ingest the articles. Again, when you first set up ServiceAI, the first thing we ask you is to optionally, but recommended, hook up an article system. So even in here, I already have mine hooked up to my CloudRadial UCP, which is a source. Really popular are IT Glue and Hudu. Those can sync in and put the articles inside of ServiceAI over here. So you can see, for example, in my tenant, we have 49 articles. We can see the articles being pulled in. We can see that a lot of the articles even have associations to a specific company. So if you have processes that speak to a specific company, we keep that kind of categorization. So that means that when the ticket comes up for Summit Financial or for Azure Technology, if there is a specific document for their specific situation, it will pull in for that ticket, but not for somebody else's. And if you have generic documentation that's not company specific, it's fair game. It'll show up for everybody. So that's a really important distinction that we see a lot of MSPs looking for. Now, when it comes to actual deep dive, or when we look at the generation of these articles, when we look at one of the existing ones, we can see that it's already looking at it, rating it on grammar and readability, and kind of summarizing it for itself. So we can also see if it overlaps. So again, if you're having a bunch of overlap with other articles, it can be assigned to prune some documentation, make sure that you're keeping everything clean. And of course, we see the body of the article, which we can also rewrite for clarity, which is super nice if you just kind of throw notes, but you've never had the time to go in there and really spruce it up. So you can let AI just take that same content and rewrite it. But let's look at one of the most useful and practical applications in practice. Let's go to the Chat Sandbox, and this is what I usually see. So a lot of MSPs have issues that come up, but again, they may be very specific or they may be very generic, and those two are examples of ones that don't necessarily have documentation behind them. Here's my go-to example. How do I fix Adobe Acrobat not opening on a Mac? So if I send that query in right now, the AI is going to search the tickets and search the documents. Now, I know we don't have any documents on there, so we're looking at the related articles here. The AI is going to give me a response. It's going to kind of give me something relatively generic because it's searching the web to try to find something important that it feels is related, but I don't specifically have it. So if I feel that this merits and warrants something a little bit more detailed, a little bit better, I'm not thrilled with the response. You can see that even it by itself says, hey, I could improve this if I had an article on how to troubleshoot issues on a Mac. It automatically will reference areas where you've seen issues, where you've had problems, and maybe even where you've dropped nuggets of knowledge and reference it. So if I generate the article from here, what's going to happen is it's going to assign itself a prompt, actually, which we can override and add additional bits of information to. We can also add additional source URLs. So if you trust somewhere to pull information from, you want to keep it super tight, you can do that as well. But for the sake of simplicity, I will just let it generate the article. So again, usually it takes about anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds. It's going to put together an article based on what it can find for, in this case, troubleshooting issues for Mac. It then will put that together, kind of define it for itself so it knows what's going on, give itself some file paths and whatnot, depending on, again, what you prompted it, and generally fill its own information gap in, which, again, you can always correct yourself or add to as we go on. With this article, what's going to happen is you can either add it to any documentation system by saving it as a file, which will give you an HTML file, But really common and popular is if you've already got a dedicated documentation system connected, you can simply add it to your KB if it's supported to write back to it. But even if it's not, we're going to look at two different ways to do it. You can add it to your supported documentation system. So again, in this case, I can add it to my CloudRadial portal, or I can add it to the internal ServiceAI brain, which is very popular. What happens here is we are basically taking this Adobe article, putting it in the ServiceAI brain, and as I do this, I have now given ServiceAI basically a playbook on how to handle this issue, same as we saw from the imported article. So same overlap scores, same editability and whatnot. What this is going to do is if I go back to that same prompt we looked at and I rerun it, what I'm expecting to see is I'd like to see this response become much more detailed, because now we have a process and specific troubleshooting steps rather than just restart or update. So now it's going to tell me how to do things, and it's going to rerun it. And then secondly, we want to see that association pop up that the related article was found. So we want to enrich it and make sure that it has information. You can see that even the evaluation response, before it was partially, it wasn't super sure. Now it's very sure, because now it has key plays on exactly how to do it. And it even brought up that troubleshooting article, which again, we can go back and tweak the steps. So this is a really easy way to see how that association works. What happens in practice too that's really useful is if you have tickets coming up that have, you learn something from a ticket and you really want to understand how to make that ticket scale. I'll pick a random one here. Software installation issue. What happened here? I'm not sure. Accounting software needed this update. It get an error code 304, you name it. You can actually generate articles directly from that ticket, which means that it can then do the same thing, scrape the issues of that ticket, supplement with web search, and create a playbook so that future technicians, future people don't have to run into the issue. So you can see that in this case, it specifically looked at the specific issues, how to fix error code 304, and you can just keep adding these documents in here to keep making ServiceAI smarter and smarter and smarter. That's how you do it tactically, one by one. And this is, again, going to change your output dramatically. But also at a big picture level to help kind of overview the entire knowledge base, there's a spot for article assessment. This article assessment can holistically take a look at the articles and tell you, like on a score of 1 to 10, basically how good and how learnable those articles are. Everything from if the grammar is off, if the readability is not so good, and if you're really stagnant with old articles, if you need to go back and review them, just to keep things fresh, updated, and make sure that people are getting the best possible information. That's it in a nutshell. There's obviously some more cool tricks that we have up our sleeves for this, but I hope this gave you a good idea, and I hope you try it out soon. Thanks.